went to her. And I just told her I loved her, said, sweetie, you're not coming back from this.
Liam Neeson saves everyone in movies, but in real life, he couldn't save the only person who mattered.
Donated 3 of her organs, so she's keeping 3 people alive at the moment. Yeah, her heart, her kidneys, and her liver. It's terrific. And I think she would be very thrilled and pleased with that too, actually.
It has been 16 years since his wife, Natasha Richardson, died in a freak accident. Most men would have remarried. Most would have moved on. But at 73, Liam Neeson is still alone. He recently revealed the heartbreaking reason why. He admitted that he still speaks to her every day. He still expects the door to open. He isn't just a widower. He is a man in love with a ghost. This is a tragic, beautiful story of the man who stayed faithful beyond the grave. The Giant and the Princess. To understand the depth of the tragedy, we must first fall in love with the romance. And to do that, we have to go back to 1993, to a theater stage in New York City. Liam Neeson and Natasha Richardson were not a likely couple. In fact, on paper, they were opposites. Liam was the rough-edged giant from Ballymena, Northern Ireland. He grew up in a town defined by religious conflict. He left school early. He worked as a forklift driver for Guinness. He was a boxer who had his nose broken more times than he could count. He carried a quiet, brooding intensity that came from a hard life. Natasha was royalty, not the kind that wears crowns, but the kind that rules the arts. She was a Redgrave. Her mother was the legendary Vanessa Redgrave. Her father was the director Tony Richardson. She grew up in London townhouses, spending her summers in Italian villas. She was educated, sophisticated, and radiated a light that seemed to banish shadows. When they were cast opposite each other in the Broadway play Anna Christie, the collision of these two worlds created a spark that burned down the theater. Liam later admitted that he had never felt chemistry like that in his life. I'd never had that kind of an explosive chemistry situation with an actor or actress. He said, we had this wonderful kind of dance, free dance on stage every night. But there was a massive complication. Natasha was married. She was married to producer Robert Fox. For months, Liam and Natasha danced around each other. Liam, who was known as a ladies' man in Hollywood, dating stars like Helen Mirren and Julia Roberts, found himself completely disarmed. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He was a captivated audience. He fell in love with her laugh. He fell in love with how she mothered everyone in the cast. When the play ended and Natasha's marriage dissolved, she sent Liam a card for his 40th birthday. It was simple. It said, "You're catching up to me. Much love, Tasha." Liam received it on the set of Schindler's List in Poland. He looked at the card and realized he was about to lose her if he didn't act. He didn't write back. He didn't call. He flew to her. He stood in front of her and said, "This is it. I've fallen in love with you." She looked at him with that sparkle in her eyes and said, "If we are to do this, we are going to do this properly." They married in 1994 in a quiet ceremony in upstate New York. They bought a farmhouse in Millbrook, far away from the smog and paparazzi of Los Angeles. They wanted a home, not a house. They planted a garden. They bought horses. For the next 15 years, they were the golden couple that no one hated. They had 2 beautiful sons, Michael and Daniel. Friends described them as the perfect balance. Liam was the earth, solid, grounded, silent, prone to moods. Natasha was the air, light, communicative, the social organizer who filled their house with dinner parties and laughter. She taught him how to enjoy life. She taught him how to be happy. Liam famously said, "She sang the song of life." He thought they would grow old together in that farmhouse. He thought they had 40 years left. He didn't know that the clock was already ticking down to the final seconds. The phone call that changed everything. March 16th, 2009. It was supposed to be a routine day, a happy day. Natasha was in Quebec, Canada, taking a skiing lesson at the Mont Tremblant Resort. It was a beautiful winter day. Liam was in Toronto, filming a movie called Chloe. Natasha wasn't doing anything dangerous. She was an adrenaline junkie. She was on the beginner's slope, the bunny hill. She fell. Witnesses say it looked like nothing, just a clumsy tumble. She wasn't wearing a helmet, which was common at the time for beginners. She hit her head on the hard-packed snow, but she stood up immediately. She laughed. She brushed the snow off her jacket. The instructor, following protocol, asked if she wanted a doctor. She said no. She felt fine. She even signed a waiver refusing medical attention. She was walking, talking, and making jokes. She walked back to her hotel room on her own 2 feet. An hour later, Liam's phone rang in Toronto. It was Natasha. Her voice was calm. She sounded like herself. She said the words that Liam will replay in his mind every night for the rest of his life. "Oh, darling, I've taken a tumble in the snow." She treated it like a funny anecdote to tell at dinner. Liam didn't panic. Why would he? She was talking to him. She was lucid. He told her to rest and that he loved her. He hung up the phone, thinking he would see her in a few days. He didn't know about a medical condition called epidural hematoma. It is a condition known in emergency medicine as talk and die. When Natasha hit her head, a tiny blood vessel tore inside her skull. While she was walking back to the hotel, laughing about her clumsiness, blood was slowly pooling between her skull and her brain. The pressure was building silently, invisibly. 3 hours after the fall, the headache started. It wasn't a normal headache. It was a thunderclap. Then came the confusion. Then the collapse. By the time the ambulance arrived, the pressure on her brain was critical. Liam received a second call. This one wasn't from Natasha. It was from a doctor. They told him he needed to come. Now, Liam rushed to the airport. He urged the pilot to fly faster. When he arrived at the small hospital in Montreal, it was chaos. He didn't know how bad it was. He thought maybe she had a broken leg or a concussion. He walked in expecting to see her sitting up in bed. Instead, he ran into a wall of bureaucracy. He ran into the emergency room, but the security guards didn't recognize him. They wouldn't let him in. Imagine the panic. The man who plays the unstoppable hero on screen, the man who kicks down doors and fights wolves, was being stopped by a security guard while his wife was dying a few rooms away. He finally pushed past them. He found a doctor he recognized, and the doctor looked at him with eyes that said everything. He showed Liam the x-ray. Her brain, the doctor said, is being crushed against the side of her skull. She was brain dead. The pact and the goodbye. Liam Neeson stood over his wife's body. She looked like she was sleeping. Her chest was rising and falling with the help of a ventilator. Her skin was warm. Her hair was still perfect, but she wasn't there anymore. Natasha, who organized the dinners, who laughed at his jokes, who raised the sons. She was gone. The lights had gone out in the lighthouse. In that sterile hospital room, under the hum of machines, Liam remembered a conversation they had made years ago. It was a dark conversation, the kind couples have late at night, a lover's pact. They had promised each other that if either of them ever ended up in a vegetative state, unable to speak or live, the other would pull the plug. They didn't want to linger. They didn't want to be a burden. Now, Liam was facing a moment he swore he would honor, but prayed he would never face. He had to be the one to end her life. He leaned down to her ear. He held her hand, and he whispered the final words of their marriage. He said, "Sweetie, you're not coming back from this. You've banged your head. I don't know if you can hear me, but I love you. We are bringing you back to New York. All your family and friends will come." He made a decision to transport her body to New York so her family and her sons could say goodbye properly. In the hospital in New York, the room was filled with love and agony. Vanessa Redgrave, her mother, stood by the bed, singing a lullaby, the song Edelweiss from The Sound of Music, to her dying daughter. But Liam stood apart. He was already in a place of solitude that no one else could enter. He authorized the doctors to remove the life support. But before they did, he made one final act of generosity. Natasha was an organ donor. Liam signed the papers. Her heart, her kidneys, her liver, they went to save 3 other people. Liam later said in an interview, "She's keeping 3 people alive right now. Her heart is still beating in someone else's chest." It was a beautiful thought, but it didn't fill the hole in his own chest. When the flatline tone sounded, the silence that followed was heavier than anything he had ever known. He had to go home to an empty farmhouse. He had to look at his two sons. Michael was 13, Daniel was 12, and tell them that their mother was never coming back. He had become a single father in the blink of an eye. He later said that the grief hit him like a wave. It hits you in the middle of the night, he said. You just start crying. You can't stop. Your chest hurts. It physically hurts. It feels like your heart is breaking. The survival and the bottle. How does a man survive the death of his soulmate? For Liam Neeson, the answer was work. He couldn't sit in the house. The silence was too loud. Every room reminded him of her. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her book was still on the nightstand. The garden she planted was blooming without her. So he ran. He threw himself into action movies. It is no coincidence that the Taken franchise became a global phenomenon right around the time of her death. Liam Neeson reinvented himself as the action hero. He fought bad guys on trains, on planes, in snowy mountains. Audiences thought he was just reinventing his career. They thought it was a cool second act. But the truth was darker. He was running away from his grief. He needed to be exhausted. He needed to be bruised. He needed to focus on choreography and stunts, so he didn't have to focus on the empty side of the bed. I'm not good without work. He admitted, I just wallow. I didn't want to wallow. I wanted to escape. But work wasn't enough. Liam has been open about his struggle with alcohol. After Natasha died, the drinking got worse. He wasn't drinking in the morning, but at night, when the boys were asleep and the house was quiet, he would open a bottle of Pinot Noir, then 2 bottles, then 3. He was trying to numb the pain. He was trying to knock himself out so he could sleep without dreaming of her. He later confessed to GQ magazine, I was drinking too much. It started since Tasha died. I was drinking 2 or 3 bottles of wine a night. He was functioning, but he wasn't living. He was in survival mode. And then there were the boys. Michael and Daniel were teenagers. They were angry. They were confused. They had lost their mother at the most critical time in their lives. Michael, the eldest, fell into a dark spiral of drugs and partying, trying to cope with the loss. Liam had to be the rock for them, even when he was crumbling himself. He had to be the mother and the father. He sent them to school. He cooked for them. He tried to keep the routine that Natasha had built, but he constantly felt like a failure. He felt like an imposter. He famously said, it's an ongoing process of missing her. It never ends. You just learn to live with the limp. The ghost in the house. Years turned into a decade. Liam got sober. He stopped the drinking because he realized he needed to be present for his sons. He rebuilt his relationship with them. He continued to make movies. But one thing never changed, his relationship status. He briefly dated a few women, a publicist, a businesswoman, but they never lasted. They never became serious. Why? Because Natasha never left. In a heartbreaking interview with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes, Liam admitted that for years after her death, he lived in a state of denial. He said, there are periods now when I hear the door opening, especially the first couple years. Anytime I hear that door opening, I still think I'm going to hear her. His mind refused to accept that she was gone. To him, she was just away on a shoot. She was just in the garden. She was just in the other room. He still talks to her. Every day. He visits her grave in upstate New York regularly. He sits there and tells her about the boys. He tells her about his movies. He asks her for advice. I speak to her every day at her grave, he said. I go down there quite often. I speak to her as if she's here. This isn't madness. It is devotion. It is a refusal to let death break the bond they forged. This is why he never remarried. How could he? When you have experienced the kind of love that Liam and Natasha had, a love that felt like destiny, a love that completed you, everything else feels like a pale imitation. Any other woman would be competing with a ghost. And for Liam, the ghost always wins. He decided that he had his great love. He had his turn. He doesn't need to find again. He is content to live in the memory of what he had. The legacy of grief and healing. In 2020, Liam and his son Micheál made a brave decision. They starred in a movie together called Made in Italy. The plot was almost too close to home. A father and son traveled to Italy to sell a house left to them by their late wife and mother, who died in a car accident. It was art imitating life in the most painful way possible. Micheál even changed his last name from Neeson to Richardson to honor his mother. Filming the movie was terrifying for them. It required them to rip open their scars in front of the camera. It required them to have conversations they had been avoiding for 10 years. But they did it. They did it for Natasha. It was their way of finally saying goodbye. Together, through that process, Liam showed the world that true strength isn't about punching bad guys or shooting guns. True strength is being vulnerable. True strength is admitting that you are broken. True strength is a father and son crying together. Liam Neeson is 73 years old now. He is still working. He is still the tough guy. But look closely at his eyes in his recent films. There's a sadness there that wasn't there before 2009. There is a depth that comes from knowing the worst pain imaginable. He carries Natasha with him in every frame. Every time he plays a character who loses someone, he isn't acting. He is remembering. His story is a reminder to all of us. We think we have time. We think we have 40 years. We think we can say, I love you tomorrow. We think we can apologize next week. But Liam Neeson's life teaches us that tomorrow is a lie. We only have today. We only have this phone call. We only have this moment before the snow falls. The man who waits. Liam Neeson will go down in history as one of the greatest actors of his generation. But his greatest role was not Schindler or Zeus or Brian Mills. His greatest role was Natasha's husband. And now his role is Natasha's keeper. He lives in the house they bought together. He tends the garden she planted. He is a man waiting for a reunion. He isn't sad every day anymore. The grief has changed. It is no longer a sharp knife that stabs him in the chest. It is a dull ache, like an old war wound when it rains. It is a part of his furniture. It is a part of his home. But he is still, in his heart, a married man. He is just waiting for his wife to come home. So, the next time you see Liam Neeson on screen, fighting the world, remember who he is really fighting for. Remember the woman who isn't there. And go home and hug the person you love. Because you never know when the phone will ring. What do you think? Is it possible to love someone so much that you can never love again? Do you admire Liam for staying single? Or do you think he should try to find happiness? Let us know in the comments below. This is the story of an eternal love. Thank you for watching The Seventh Lens.